All right. We are now joined by Kevin Harvick, 2007 Daytona 500 champion, driver of the number 4 Stewart Haas Racing Ford. Go ahead and open it right up to questions. Please raise your hand, and we'll get to you as quick as we can. We'll start in the back. Work our way up.
All right, thank you. I assume it doesn't matter as much to you as it would to some of the guys out here trying to make the race. No practice this year before qualifying. What do you think about that? And Austin Cindric insinuated that, one, you gave him a good ass chewing at Coda last year, and then at the Coliseum, you sort of gave him a different type of ass chewing on the track.
Well, I think the practice thing, I'm not necessarily in agreement with having our biggest and first race of the year and having no practice. So I'm sure that there's some sort of thought behind why and what the reasoning is, but not a fan of that. For especially for what I consider what I think everybody would consider our biggest race. In the other situation, I think it's just we all learn as we go, and each week you have things that you learn, and sometimes you learn them in a conversation, and sometimes you just learn them on the track. So it's all in how you take it and proceed from there. Part of the process.
All right, let's go over here to Jordan, and then we'll come up to Holly, and then over to Bruce.
Jordan Bianchi with The Athletic to your left. Have you had any input or any conversations with anyone at SHR about who you think should be in the 4-car next year?
I have not.
And then last year you had mentioned that you'd like to see Ryan Preece get a shot with SHR. You had said that you'd like to see the team go after Kyle Busch and put him under contract. I'm curious, if you were in charge now at SHR, who you'd like to see in the 4-car next year.
Well, here's what I can explain to you on that scenario. Being a team owner in the past, there are conversations that are beyond me, and the thought processes and things that I'm not involved with on a day-to-day basis, and I've learned that speculating on what I would do if it was mine is really irrelevant, because it's not, and I don't think it's. I've probably made some comments here and there about if it was mine, but I don't know that that's really fair, because there are so many scenarios that play into the decisions that get made from the team owners and the team managers and manufacturers, and stipulations of who you can put in the car and who you can't put in the car, what you can pay them. There's a lot of politics that go into the decisions as well, and politics are just a part of racing in everything, every form and level of racing that there is, and each organization has those politics and good things and bad things of what they're trying to accomplish. So, look, if it was mine, I would do a lot of things different, but it's not mine. And for me, I've had a great place to race for going on 10 years now that fit my situation, and hopefully whoever comes in next, it fits their situation and what aligns with the goals of Stewart Haas Racing and that particular driver and things that have happened in the past. So it's not that I think that they have done or are doing anything wrong. It's part of the process, right? And it's not a process that I'm involved in to know the details of where they're headed and where they're going, because I've known what I was doing and the process that I was working towards and the things that I was working towards, and I think as you look at those processes, I haven't been involved in them, and I don't think it's fair to be involved in them from sponsor standpoints or driver standpoints or anything like that. So I've tried to do all this as professionally as possible to let the new processes take place that are fair for the organization and the drivers and the crew chiefs and all the personnel and the people and the sponsors. There's just so many things that it affects that I want it to be right, and I want it to be successful for that group of team owners and people and personnel and the driver. And me being in the middle of it isn't going to make it any better, because I not a part of every piece of the puzzle like I was when I owned the teams, and I'm not in the position from the driver standpoint to say I want this, and this, and this needs to go this way, and this way. I had a lot of control of being a part of those conversations when I did it. So, what I want and what everybody else wants are two different things. So that's a long-winded answer for I'm irrelevant to the conversation.
Let's come up to front to the Holly.
Holly Kane with the NASCAR Wire Service. Kevin, you've obviously your entire career been a very highly motivated person. A couple of drivers have said today that they think that your tolerance, if that's the right word, this season might be a little bit less. In other words, this is your last season. These are your last races that you're going
Dale
for.
Dale Jr. summed it up best for me. He said, "This is your NFG tour." I said, "You're right."
Is that
we settle if we have to settle scores. We settle them immediately. So we aren't waiting until next week. If it rolls, we're settling them.
All right, let's head over here to Bruce, and then
That's a perfect setup for this question. When you came into the Cup Series, you replaced Dale Earnhardt. In a lot of ways, you're the closest thing the sport has had to him since. Is that something you take great pride in, to know that you raced like him and you carried yourself like him?
I like to look at it as I've raced like myself, because, there's everybody tries to make comparisons, and I think for me, it's really trying to stay, and I've always tried to stay true to myself and do the things that got you to this point, and beat your own path, and fight for what you think is right, and do the things that it takes on the racetrack to put yourself in a position to be competitive and win and do all the right things. So it's really not about. I don't want to drag myself into that conversation, personally, just because I've always just tried to do the right thing, and sometimes it hadn't been right. Sometimes they've been wrong, and you learn from those situations and you try to do them better the next time. So it's taken me a long time to learn that. Yeah, and that's probably my fault that I didn't try to, instead of just stepping back out of that over the last 4 or 5 years, not in the last year and a half, but 4 or 5 years before that, stepping back because it was just frustrating, and it felt like it was a waste of time. It really wasn't. It really probably wouldn't have been a waste of time. But I think when you start seeing your colleagues get hurt, then it really lit a fire to me to make sure that you didn't leave them hanging before you left, and you tried to establish something that was better for them before we left. And for all of us, it's been eye-opening to have to establish relationships and talk to each other in the same room, and because that's just not it hasn't been that way in 15 years. And when Dale and all those guys were coming up through the years, those guys all traveled together. They were all really good friends, and it's just kind of evolved away from all that with the way that today's industry works. So, for us to have to sit in rooms and talk to each other and learn more about each other and get to know each other, and I feel like I've gotten to know more of the guys over the last year and a half than I have in the last 10 years. And fortunately for me, that's a really good thing. It's good timing, to try to help, but it's also great timing in transitioning to the TV booth to know every single one of them when I get up in the booth, and I will, other than the new guys that are coming in, one or two at a time, I'll know them all, and I'll be able to talk about them great because I know them. But it's important for those guys to continue that and get to know each other more, because in situations you're gonna be in this situation again where you need everybody to be able to collaborate and get the things that you want, and fight for the things that are the right thing for the drivers, and not the team, and what costs less. So, there's been a lot of very productive conversations. I think we're on, in a very good place with where we are as a group, And I think we're in a good place with our communication with NASCAR and the things that we talk about and the progression that we're moving forward and doing the things that we need to do. So, sure, it all came to a head, but most good changes and situations all come to a head. And the thing that everybody did was say, okay, we need to stop, and we need to sit down, and we need to figure this out. And that's when you get the adults in the room and you figure things out, and we all stop bickering at each other and try to be productive. So, and that's where we are today.
Go back in the middle. Then we'll
Danny
come up to Jim.
Harnden from Fox 8 TV in Greensboro. Kevin, for the next 38 weeks or so, do you think as you go from track to track to track that each track will give you like an old man goodbye gift, like a rocking chair or something like that? And also, second question, do you think you'll soak it in like each week as you go this farewell, like just soak it like each week?
Yeah, well, I don't know how good I'll be at soaking it in, and because I just get too competitive and get too locked into what's going on. But I feel like we've done everything that we can do to put things in place with logos that everybody can use, and giving the fans a chance to come back to the racetrack and be at the races that they want to be at, and do the right thing for the people and the sponsors and the team and everybody involved to go and do the tour one more time and have fun with it, but also be competitive. So for me, it's going to be a balance between taking all that in and not being grumpy because you're in the competitive mindset, and I explain that to people all the time. There's a difference between a meet and greet at the car and a meet and greet away from the racetrack, or a hospitality or an appearance away from the racetrack. They're two different people. So we've put a lot of things in place to just try to make it simple as possible, but it's also, I understand that it's important. I feel like your last year is important, and I think Tony and his group was really good to have in my corner because of the fact they've already been through this, and having a few years to sit back and say, man, I wish I would have done that, and listening to Tony and trying to take as much in as possible is important. It'll take me a little bit to really find the balance of the importance of that and remembering that, and also being in the competitive mindset. So some weeks I'll do good with it, some weeks I'll not do so good with it, but we've had great leadership from him and his group at Stewart-Haas Racing to know what he would have done different, and I think that's why you see it's unfolded the way that it has, and everything has a proper plan. Everything was done beforehand, so we didn't have to do it twice, and so there's a lot of different things, and for me, I've been involved in every piece of it, every step of the way, to make sure that we do and tell. We're telling a story, right? We're telling a story of 30 years of racing through helmets and paint schemes and social media and interviews and special interviews, and I'm prepared for the extra time, because I know that there's a responsibility to help tell those stories and help relive those situations, and it's a part of what you've done. So you have to take a little bit of pride in that and in presenting it correctly, and that's what we've tried to do.
Okay, let's go right here in the middle, and then we'll come up to Jim.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Kevin, I'm curious, does the start of this season, now that we've started Media Day, we've done the Clash, does the start of this season feel any different for you now, knowing that this is your final season?
For me, I've always been a planner, and I always feel like when I start the season, I know what the plan is, and I know what I'm trying to accomplish, and I know what I'm working towards. From the racing side, it's the same. But I think this year is it's a different plan, right? And so you go out and you execute the plan, and you start working on the next plan. And as we go through the year, there's obviously things that will have to be executed, and we'll have to change some things along the way, or special opportunities that pop up, or whatever the scenario is. That I think we're all prepared to kind of change course and do things that you know, that pop up. But you know, I think it's you know, as you see the Fox booth stuff, announcement, and everything that goes with Fox, it's important to know that, you know, we're going to get started with that this year. We're going to be in the booth, and we're going to be on Race Hub, and you're going to work towards all the things that we're working towards on that side of it. And there's a lot more to do this year than a normal year, but it's still less to do than there was, you know, 20 years ago. So it's still a pretty light load, you know, as far as how I came up and the things that I had to do and appearances and things like that. It's just you just got to be a good multitasker.
You're also going to hear plenty from the guys you're racing against on a regular basis and people you have competed against in the past. Speaking about you, speaking about your career and your accomplishments as well, how do you take those things? Is it awkward? Is it rewarding? I guess, what are the emotions when you hear sort of their reactions to what you've done and contributed to the sport?
Yeah, well, it was really awkward in the beginning before the day that the announcement came out that it was going to be the last year, and it was you know, very emotional leading up to that point of doing all the videos and doing all the things that came with that. But I think after the announcement came out and you saw, you know, how it was received by people and just, you know, the way that it all went, that was a relief. You know, you feel like you did a lot of the good things along the way, and you know, you tried to do the right things and race hard and do the right things for people and try to help people, you know, along the way, because it's not easy and not everybody has the opportunity to just do it. You have to have some help along the way. So I think you know, the response that day and since then has made me relax a lot more, because I always worry about, you know, what people think, and some people may not think that, but you know, I think as you go through this, you worry about what people think, because your reputation is really all you have.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap up here with Jim.
Jim Elder, motorsport.com. Speaking of balancing, you've spent this week with Keelan racing on the other side of the state. When you do that stuff with him, how difficult is it to balance explaining to your kids that your part of your racing story is coming to an end, but like on his side, his is just beginning, and kind of flip-flopping between the two?
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to hear anything from me about advice, so so that's always interesting. So for me, I spend a lot of time coaching through the coach and twiddling my thumbs at the racetrack. You know, just trying to get everything established from you know, what he drives and the things that he can compete in with the people that he's competing with, and trying to just put him in the right environment, so and cause as few wars as possible between the two of us. So it's for me, with all the things that are happening with the Cars Tour and the ownership group, and going to all these short tracks and learning about how INEX works and the legend cars, and seeing different short tracks and watching different races, and having different streaming services and things that you're dealing with, you know, that has been good for me. So there's a lot of things that I can accomplish just being at those events and understanding how things work and how things go, and you know, talking to the short track racers or the legend car guys, or there's a lot of them that race you know, late models or super late models, and kind of bleed over into all kinds of different racing series. So there's a lot there. You know, being that it's your kid, you take a lot of pride in what's going on, but there's also a lot of life lessons and things that you want him to learn along the way about try to be a good person, and not always. It's not always about going fast, and some of it is about, a lot of it is about life. And you know, I think racing teaches your kids well, and this is a great group of people, and I've grown up around my whole life, and he's been up around it his whole life. But there are a lot of great life lessons that you can be taught and learn, no matter where you're racing. So that part's been fun, because you look at it from a much different perspective, and you see it from a much different angle, and you sit in the grandstands and you see the parents and the pride and you know, the fights and all the things that go on, and you get to kind of step back and really look at those things from a different perspective. So it's really, you know, Keelan racing is really the reason that I raced longer than I had planned, just because it just was there was so much that I remembered that I loved about racing. You know, when he started racing, because of the fact that you remembered why you go to the racetrack, you remember the pride that your parents took in what you did, and seeing that and feeling that was really rejuvenating for me to go and keep doing it.
All right, Kevin, thanks for coming in. Good luck this weekend.